Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Nerve Guys podcast, where we discuss movement from the view of the brain and nervous system. I'm your host, James. This episode is brought to you by the Neuroband, the wearable vision and balance training tool. We'll talk more about that at the end. But for today, we are going to be talking about pain. So the question for today is, how much pain is actually required when you're learning a skill or when you're trying to train yourself to improve? Where is the limit where we say this much pain is good and it's actually going to be helping us get better and improve, and then anything past this line is not good? I was kind of lucky enough to be interviewed about this for somebody's degree recently, and it was all about pain in circus performance. And I've kind of had it mulling over in my head ever since then about, like, how can we improve the conversations that we're having about pain? Because in kind of pop culture, all you ever hear is sort of no pain, no gain. If it's not hurting, you're not getting any benefit. Or when I work with gymnastics coaches, very much, when a kid says, hey, this hurts, they'll say, that's good, that means it's working. And I find that incredibly problematic because, number one, I think it's just factually not true. And number two, we can argue about, do you need to experience negative things in order to develop and improve? But I think it's important to note the difference between putting yourself into negative situations and overcoming negative situations. There's a very big difference between those two things. So let's talk about pain in general. So pain as a sensation, as an emotion, is designed to make you pay attention to your body. And generally, I think we can all agree that it's not a good thing. When your body's giving you pain, it's making a suggestion that it wishes something was different, okay? It's not necessarily saying there's damage there. It could be saying, there's tissue damage. It could be saying something's going on that means you shouldn't be moving this as much. But it's giving you information. And if we are to take that information and just ignore it, problems are going to happen down the line. At some point, if we just say, when you're experiencing pain, that's not something you should concern yourself with, or not until it reaches a certain level, I think that's quite a big problem. So when you look at toddlers, how pain averse are they? They tend not to engage in activities that are super painful. And actually, they seem to avoid it most of the time. And yet, toddlers and young children learn and develop faster than any other humans at any other point in their life. Their brain is essentially just a big sponge, and it picks up on everything that is going on around it. I personally think that is enough information to say that pain is not an essential ingredient in the learning process. But other people tend to disagree because of the fact that we do actually know that there is some evidence that, dealing with stressful events, overcoming stressful events, actually helps us to become more mentally resilient. So when we talked with Gareth about Wim Hof, this idea that, when you put yourself in an ice bath, you elevate your stress levels, like your stress levels go out of control. The benefit of the ice bath comes from your body learning how to control that stress and manage that stress. And then what happens in real life when your stress levels shoot up out of control, you actually are better at controlling them than if you hadn't gone through that experience. And if that's true about stress, you could say the same is true about pain. And it very much seems to be true that, you know, if you learn how to calm yourself in a painful situation, the experience of the pain isn't that bad. In fact, a lot of what we do when people come to me with chronic pain and they're dealing with low back pain or something like that, the most important thing for me is not about how do I strengthen the muscles in the back, it's about how do I teach you to kind of accept the pain when it comes and just calm yourself down and relax everything, because that's what makes the pain go away. So, and what you then find as well in those chronic pain patients is when they experience pain later on down the line, actually they're better at dealing with it and better at managing it. So you could actually say that forcing pain on yourself and figuring out how to calm it down is actually a really good way to control pain in the future. So with those two statements, I guess my argument is going to be that, number one, you do not need pain to learn, and therefore you should not be looking for pain as a metric for progress. Okay, if you're trying to slide into doing the splits or something like that, a lot of the time people's metric that they use is they slide till it hurts and then they hold the pain for a certain amount of time. I don't think that's actually a useful metric. I think more realistically, your goal should be to figure out how to slide that far without it hurting. And that's a very different thing from tolerating any degree of pain, because what happens is if you tolerate pain for long enough and you slide down into that split or do whatever thing you do where it hurts, your brain is going to start to learn that sliding into a split is supposed to come with a sensation of pain attached. And if you continue this for long enough, then the act of sliding into the split, whether you actually stretch the muscle to a dangerous level or not, the brain goes, oh, cool, we got to prime that pain sensation, and you're going to start feeling the pain, and you'll notice that while you improve with the pain never seems to go away, because your brain has actually learned that it is appropriate for the skill that you're doing, and you should be experiencing the pain in order to know that you're doing a good job. Instead, anytime that we're dealing with pain, the goal is to figure out how to make the pain go away. So when it's stretching, when it's workouts, when it's all of those things, every time that we're dealing with pain as an experience, we're thinking about calming it down, we're thinking about reducing it, we're thinking about making it go away. We are not actually using it as this much pain is okay. If I go over this, then it's not okay. From the very get-go, the minute you're experiencing discomfort, it's not okay. It might be okay that you're dealing with discomfort, but your goal is to get rid of this discomfort. I'll add a little caveat to that as well, because the conversation that I initially had this in was with a circus performer. And one of the difficult things when it comes to performing circus is a lot of the skills that we practice, it becomes really hard to say that you should be able to do this without pain. You know, stretching your muscles or exercising your muscles, there are times when it hurts, but it's very feasible to say, yeah, you should be able to stretch your legs out to wherever you want and not experience pain. Hanging from your toes or hanging from your neck, or, you know, wrapping chains around your wrists, tons of things, you know, where you're compressing the joints into each other, you're tearing literal chunks of skin off your arm. There are instances where you would say it's not reasonable to tell somebody they should be able to make the pain go away at all. So what do you do in that circumstance? Surely then it must be okay to say, hey, this much pain is the limit, and then over this is too much. And I guess I'll concede a little bit when it comes to this. But rather than saying you need a sliding scale to say how much is appropriate and how much is too much, you still want to deal with any pain that you're gonna have to deal with, a certain intensity of pain. So let's say we've got a scale of 10, and 1 out of 10 you barely feel it, 10 out of 10 is you should probably go to the hospital, it's so bad. 5 out of 10 is like the point where you lose the ability to focus on what you're doing and you start focusing more on the pain. What you want to get good at doing, instead of figuring out how much you can tolerate, is actually figure out how much rest you should be appropriating to each level on the scale. So if you're at a 1 out of 10 in pain, and so it's uncomfortable, but you can barely feel it, you probably stop doing it, and you're probably going to find that you can rest for like an hour and then get back and do it again, and it still feels like a 1 out of 10. Your goal is to find that for every level on the scale. So if you're doing something that's a 2 out of 10, I don't know what these numbers mean, by the way, you're going to have to work those out for yourself. But what we want to do is you feel the 2 out of 10. How much rest does it take before when you do it again, it still only feels like a 2 and it hasn't gone up to a 3? So, when you're doing these things like hanging from your neck, you do it once, and then you go back up and do it again, and it's more painful because your brain didn't like it the first time, and the second time it's like, nope, definitely not. And there will be a certain amount of rest where it goes back to its original level. And that's essentially just what we want to do. We want to find out, when I train the 8 out of 10, do I need to rest a week before I can get back up and feel an 8 out of 10? If it's something that you're going to do for aesthetic reasons, because you like how it looks, but you cannot deal with the pain, you're going to obviously use all your calming techniques to bring it as low as possible. And then you're going to figure out how much rest do you actually need to have before you can essentially bring it back to the same level. When you work at it that way, you keep a healthy relationship with pain where your body understands that you've got its best interests at heart. You're not going to try and push it beyond its capacity and beyond its limits. And it goes, okay, cool. Well, then I'm not going to let this pain manifest in other ways. If you push beyond those things with pain, you're going to find down the line the injuries start to ramp up. Everything starts to just get worse and worse because your body now doesn't trust you not to compromise its safety with your actions. So that's my thoughts on pain. I'd be really curious to hear people's thoughts, if you're a circus performer especially, but if you're working in any kind of sport, does this kind of make sense? Am I getting it wrong in thinking that a lot of people actually aren't thinking in this way? Does your sport actually have what you would consider a healthy relationship to pain? Let me know in the comments. I would love to read. If you've enjoyed this episode and you would like to support the podcast, I would highly recommend you check out the Neurobands. So this is upside down. Doesn't look much different the right way up, but this is our wearable vision and balance training tool designed to improve posture, coordination, and focus. The visual systems and the balance systems in the body are crucially important when it comes to de-stressing, being able to relax. The better these systems are functioning, the easier you're going to find it. So if you're finding you're trying to master your control over pain, you can't go too wrong by kind of maxing out the abilities of your vision and balance systems. So Neuroband, going to be your friend there. This comes with 2 12-minute workouts. You can do one in the morning, one in the evening. One's to like invigorate, wake you up, kind of challenge, stimulate the visual and balance systems. The other one gives a bit more of a challenge and a workout at the end of the day. And yeah, you can pay for the course. We'll ship the band to wherever you are in the world. And that's it. So check out the Neuroband. Check out the episode next week. Thank you very much for watching.